Hello and welcome to Mindscapes, our series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is from the world of Indian classical music. But he represents a personality somewhat at odds with the dominant culture of this tradition. Shy, somewhat reticent, retreating, more involved perhaps with training future generations of classical vocalists than of projecting himself on the stage. He's widely regarded and admired as a classical vocalist, both for his inheritance from his famous father, who founded the Gandharva Vidyalaya, which he now manages and runs. I'm delighted to welcome Madhup Mudgal. Do you find sometimes that your somewhat shy, reticent personality is at odds with the dominant culture of music today, where people feel the need to project themselves and to be aggressive about their art?
Yes, I do sometimes. Even I try to do that, but it takes so much of your energy and all. I thought and I just can't do it naturally.
You have, you have performed extensively internationally in India and abroad, and you have cassettes and CDs and power with most well-known singers. Sometimes is that a feeling of regret, perhaps, that your work and you are not better known in the popular press? You're very highly regarded and known amongst the community of classical musicians, but not so much outside.
No, I am quite happy in a way, because what work I have done is of very good quality. And if maybe there are so many other cassettes, something which I have to make, in a way it's good that I take up a project, I do it very seriously. And the result has yet so far been very good.
What is more satisfying for you, working on a recording that can be crafted and is really good and frozen in time, or a live performance?
Live performance, not a recording.
Why
Recording
a
is
live performance?
not natural, because when the red light comes on, then that all natural thing goes off. It's always better during the rehearsals of that recording. I sometimes wonder that why don't the recording company people record you when you are rehearsing? It's so natural. And yet when the red light comes on, you miss out on some things.
And what is the satisfactions from a live performance?
Live performance, I would say I take it as I sing in a room or something. It's not very different for me. It should be also like this. You don't go onto the stage and perform something which is very different from what you have been doing in the room. So live performance for me is something which took place in my room, and I tried to, as it should come as it was in the room.
Do you feel the presence of the audience? Do you respond to their moods, to their appreciation?
If the audience is appreciative, yes, I do. It does help.
And is it sort of depressing? Are you put off when they don't seem to be with the same level of attention, concentration, or appreciation?
Sometimes, yes, but you still have to do your job and finish.
Tell me and our viewers as to what is the kind of tradition in terms of the form, the strand, the heritage, the kind of vocal music that you embody. What is it called? What is its form? What is its characteristic?
I sing one of the most popular forms that is prevalent today, that is Khyal. And I'm very fortunate to have learned from one of the great masters, Pandit Kumar Gandharva. And for a reason, like he used to teach a person if he was interested in music for its sake only, and not for performing it. If you like music, then he'll teach you. It's not you, maybe you are not a performer, maybe you don't perform later also, it didn't matter to him. He would teach you if you love music. That was a basic consideration for him. That's why very few there are very few students of Kumarji. Like many people would come there, we want to learn something, we want to perform there. So he used to discourage such people.
What are the unique characteristics of the Khayal?
Khayal has it's got parts of every other form of singing, like Dhrupad Dhamar, Thumri, Tappa. It's got very beautiful parts of there. So it's a beautiful mixture, synthesis of all the forms of singing. That's why I think it's more popular also.
You have an intellectual, larger understanding of music. To what degree does that reflect on your performance?
It does reflect. I can't explain that very easily, but how the rhythm works, and that is very important. How the singing moves, that is also very important. That while learning, I can't explain that. I'm sorry.
But when you're teaching this as a teacher, you went through this formal, structured learning of the academic and theoretical aspects of music. What emphasis do you give to your students in teaching this?
Same emphasis as my teacher had given. I take the special students and I teach them. It's not only performing. The way the system works, the way you can create alap, that I've understood, and that is a very difficult thing. I try to teach them how to understand that.
Well, say someone who was completely tone deaf like me, aspired to be a musician, and if I could turn the clock back, I don't know what, 30, 40 years, and I came to you and said, look, I want to learn music. What is it that you would be looking for in a potential musician who really hasn't had the formal training or introduction to music? What are the qualities that identify a potential musician?
First thing is the voice. You should have a good voice, and even more important is how much attention he gives, how attentive that way. That is more important for me. Sincerity, honesty towards learning. That is more important.
You mentioned sincerity and honesty. Do you think that you have to be a good human being to be a good musician?
It's a very difficult and a good question, because I've asked this question to many artists and many other people. What is it? Because I've known artists who are absolute villains, but they are so good in their art. But I think it does matter at a very later stage. In the beginning it might not matter, but later stage, I think the good human being and the fine art, level of fine arts, it should be there. Yes, but maybe not in the beginning.
In the students that you train, you were telling me that you have more than 1,500 students who come and study music and study dance and what have you. Do you find over the years that, given the globalization of culture, to the kind of things that they're exposed to outside the institution and in their homes, what is it doing to their sensibilities, to their abilities to absorb and respond to the classical traditions that you're trying to keep alive?
Yeah, this is a point, because they like to speed up things. They want results very fast, and especially in Hindustani music or any other form of fine arts. There are no shortcuts. You have to go through the grind. You have to go slowly and slowly. Like in our times, when I was learning, I'm still learning in a way, but 3 or 4 Vilambit Khyals you had to learn. Now they are satisfied with one only and they'll want more. So that is a basic difference. We had so much time.
So is this just a question of the availability of time? And as you've mentioned that this is a generation in a hurry.
Yes.
But how important is that quality of sadhana that you and the previous generation and some of the successful younger generations really embody? What did sadhana represent? Just sort of the ability of training the voice? Was it a relationship with your teacher? A much sort of deeper, holistic approach to music?
All the points that you're saying, they represent that only. Because you have to go through that period of learning and slowly learning, so that whatever you have learned, it goes into yourself. It's not from outside. Like I tell them, please learn this composition, just keep singing it, go continuously. Just don't leave it in the class and go back, because otherwise it won't go into your system. So going into that system, going into our blood, like for me, if I take a rag, new rag, to get it into my system, it takes me quite some time, 3 or 4 years to get it. And even after that, if you leave it for some time and you take it up again, then it acts like a foreigner again. You have to learn it again. But if you've done work over it before, then it becomes easier next time. But still, rag, they don't come to you very easily that way.
When you say internalize it or become a part of your system, what do you really mean? I mean, I'm trying to see understand, get an insight into the distinction between, say, the physical practice of learning a note or training the voice to be able to reproduce it in certain scales and what have you. And there is, of course, the internalization that, in a sense, precedes the expression.
Correct.
Now, how do you work on this internalization? When you say that I internalize a rag, what do you do to internalize it?
Besides your own practice, you need to listen to other artists who have sung that same rag. And you have to hear a lot. I have heard so much. All the festivals in Delhi, which I used to accompany vocalists. I used to love sitting behind them on the tanpura, which nowadays I find that they're feeling ashamed of doing it without any monetary benefits. I used to love singing. I used to sit behind the artists, and that was the process. These are the processes. And when you hear one artist sing the rag same way, I'll listen to the other artist, what he's done, what my teacher has taught, to imbibe in many ways, not through only the physical practice. And in our music, it's more, you have to take it inside and then the outcome of it.
So what happens is that when you listen to a number of performances of the rag, and you see what sort of emotional tones or counterpoints or nuances that it brings on you, that you experience while listening to it,
yes.
And then you try and in some ways internalize, freeze them, evaluate emotional terms of reference to it, so that when you are performing, you're able to bring those feelings back.
Correct.
And then that becomes a link to what you're actually performing. But what I found sort of fascinating about the Indian classical music traditions is, of course, the fact that they're not substantially notarized. It isn't written down, and rag is held as a mood. Now the mood is sort of can be in some ways verbally described, but how is this mood transmitted in its purity from generation to generation, from student to teacher, when we find that even verbal texts tend to get corrupted? You say that this was the Buddha's teaching, but was it the Buddha's teaching? Over the centuries, has it changed? So in this process of transmission of the rag, and it has to be a non-verbal transmission, how do you retain the purity?
But as you say, the rags, the roop of the rags, they have also changed over the years. Like same rag, I can see 40 years ago, which it was different than what it is now. The rags do change. but they're still there. But that is that process of learning, and that is the beauty of music.
But what is the pure element of the rag? The emotion, the notes. What makes a rag pure? When we say, "Oh, this is pure," what do we mean?
The way it is sung, the pronunciation. Rag is not only the notes. It's how you produce the notes. There can be many rags in one scale only. So how do you? That is, you have to learn it, and then maybe just to look differently, and the rag changes. It can be very, very different. Not, and that is the difference. Like rag and tal, these are the two systems in the world that makes our music unique from other systems of the world. Everywhere, China, Japan, they have taken up Western music, Western classical music. Only India remains. How much fusion and it will come, but still our music, there is still that it remains, because this is the uniqueness, rag and tal.
You have you mentioned fusion. You have done a fair amount of fusion work yourself in Brazil and in other parts of the world. What prompted you to do that? Just sort of newness, diversity, or did you feel that there was actually something, a creative engaging? Because one perceives of you as a classicist, and I don't really associate fusion that much with you.
No, fusion is just for fun, one time or two time experience. It's not. We were there in Brazil, and our organizers suggested this. I thought, and experienced it, but it's not a lasting feeling. You can do it once or twice, that's all. It's not something that you strive for or something.
Tell me, very often you hear critics and then you feel that somebody is technically very good in music and has great virtuosity and great technique, and you feel but the music hasn't touched my soul. How does one distinguish between music which has technical virtuosity and music that touches one's soul?
That is very difficult to explain again in words. I've got many examples I can give. By just feeling is that feeling is there. There are many examples you can also see. Well, he's a very good technically. He is not so, but yet the feeling comes through in his singing. You can't explain these things.
In preparing for a concert and for this feeling to be communicated, how important is your own state of mind? You're a performer. You have a performance at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Something unpleasant happens at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock.
Correct.
In what ways are you able to still deliver a virtuoso performance? Are you able to keep the performance separate from the individual? Some people can do that. I mean, look at the way President Clinton during the Monica Lewinsky scam seemed to be able to function with full control and composure and concentration in a job as president, but while everything else was blowing up into merry hell. Now, how difficult is it? I'm sure it's more difficult for an artist, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how difficult is it to separate that?
It's very difficult, but in the beginning, in your learning years, it's more difficult. Now it becomes slightly easier. And by seeing my teacher, I learned many things like this, like these. Like when his accompanist, Vasant Achrekarji, for 30 long years, more than that, every concert he was there, nearly. When he passed away, there was Kumarji's concert the next day in the morning. We were all there. I was playing the tanpura. So somebody else was playing the tabla. So I didn't realize what has happened. Why is Vasantji not there? That whole concert took place, and one of his memorable concerts. And after that, people asked him. Then people came to know that Vasantji is not there. He died that early night. So he could have cancelled the program. Kumarji said no, that people had come for me. Why should they suffer for my personal loss? And that was a learning process for me, because such a big loss for him, and yet he was singing, he was smiling. There was no trace, nobody could make out. such instances, I learned a lot from these.
So it's very much in the sort of the Western tradition, the phase of the show must go on.
Correct.
Regardless of regardless of what happens. For an artist, from the time that you start learning music, it is a process of continuing evolution, growth, and exploration in that sense. Do you find that sometimes your aspirations for your music change? That we all want to be better at what we do. We want to be more fulfilled with what we do. Sometimes our objectives change. Maybe as we grow older, we seek less recognition and more perfection, or whatever. Each person has his own personal unfolding. You're still in your 40s, and that's sort of not even middle age for a performer. So what inadequacies do you see in yourself, and what you feel that in the next 10, 20 years you want to crack?
There are no goals as such, as you're saying, but these things, yes, they change. Aspirations, you can say. Sometimes you feel I should have more programs. Sometimes the other phase comes in, no, let me, I just want to practice, I don't want to program. These phases come and go like this.
How important is being a teacher for you? Because you invest a lot of time and energy in being a teacher, far more than most classical musicians do in some ways. Not just in terms of the personal students you have, but in terms of the institutional framework that you manage to train the future. What satisfaction does that give you?
I can't again explain it because I've inherited it from my father, and the way I've seen Kumarji teach also. It's quite an enjoyable experience, and it's more or less like a concert. If the student is very good, then the teaching also becomes like a concert. You teach something today, and the next day it's different. For me, it's like that only. Yeah, of course, sometimes the students are there, it becomes very monotonous. It happens that way also. But mostly I've got students with, it's like a program only. You learn every day something yourself also.
What are the sort of the financial difficulties, contexts today of being able to run a music academy that's looking at classical music and not looking at, shall we say, modern dance or teaching computers? I mean, that is a prevalent need of young people. So those that do come to you, what kind of people are they? What kind of backgrounds do they come from? Why do you think they come? It seems sort of a mismatch in some ways with our perceptions of popular culture.
That is the basic thought of the institute. Like my father, he built the school on the ideals of Pandit Madhup that music should be available to masses, to everybody who wants to learn it, not for the privileged few or those who had money or something. So that thought process, the whole institution is there. The fees is also very minimum. Now the basic fees is 200 rupees per month for thrice a day for the whole month.
My goodness.
So that way, people from all walks of life, they can come. We have a bus conductor learning in the same class as an industrialist son. That way.
So you mean there'd be hope for someone like me at 40 plus to come and start learning music?
There are people. Some people they're learning after retirement also, and children learning from 7.
So there is hope.
Yeah. As long as you want to do it for yourself, for enjoyment.
Sure.
Like if you want to say, I want to perform, then I'm sorry.
Sure. But what is it about music that that brings people to want to explore it when they've retired at 65? People want to learn yoga and do things because they feel, or meditation or what have you, because they feel there's a tangible, established correlation between time benefit. So what do you think are some of the payoffs from music?
I think basically it must be Anand. Like you love it, that's all. That should be the basic criteria, and it must be also. Maybe for some students they want to become teachers, or they want to some particular goal in life. But For me also, I learned music because I liked it. I love to sing that way.
So what is the joy that, I know this is a difficult, unfair question perhaps, but because it's so complex and so layered, but what are some of the joys that music gives you?
जब सुर लगता है, when you sing the note in pure notes, जब everything goes, that राग चलता है, जब गाने लगते हैं, everything comes properly, वो जो आनंद है, that is something you hope, you strive for. And if there's a good composition, like I've composed for Leela, Madhvi, and many of these compositions have come with me sitting in the room only, without thinking that it's for dance or something. It came like that. And I asked Leela, if you want this Madhvi, ki bhai chahiye kya ye, that way. Then they would put in ki bhi, make it for me like this, slightly change it that way.
So this aspect of composition, when you say composition comes to me, what is the element of it that comes to you? The melody, the mood? How does it sort of begin to take shape? Because it's something so sort of subtle. A poet can say that when I get an image or I get a word, it's more concrete, whereas you're dealing with sound.
It just it comes, I don't know when and how, and when. Generally it comes when you're practicing one rag and you go deep into it, then something comes from that. Very abstract, generally.
We often talk about the mind's eye, but is there a mind's ear too?
Yeah, in a way it is. But you can't guarantee that it will come tomorrow. It comes like that, and for that, maybe when the composition is coming for 1 hour or 2 hours, and you're not bothered about tea, breakfast, anything.
Becheni hoti hai, do you feel restless?
Yes, I feel restless, and I just want to write it down or maybe record it so I don't lose that. Even if I get up from that seat and go and fetch a pen or something, I lose that. So you really want to just
freeze it somehow.
Get it there. And that moment is really blissful. That is the point of creativity, I think. I don't know what people talk about.
You're a musician, a performer, you're a composer, you manage one of the most influential institutions to the training and grooming of the next generation of classical musicians. What aspiration, hope, dream, ambition do you see for yourself? I mean, I can't even say 10, 15 years because with a little luck you could have a life of another 40 years, 50 years. So, down the line, down in the distant horizon, what is this dream that you're moving towards?
Perfection of my singing only. I want to be perfect in that.
When does a singer become perfect?
I know there's no limit. I know there's no limit. But I want to enjoy it more than I'm doing now.
So all sort of good luck to you in the pursuit of that enjoyment, and we will be applauding all the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.